Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are. Thanks for joining me again for the live Q&A session here on my channel. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Angela. I'm a full-time voiceover artist and audiobook narrator, and my channel is dedicated to those of you just getting started in this wonderful world of voiceover and audiobook narration. And through my channel, I share with you tips, tricks, techniques, things that I do every day in my own voiceover business, and then we get together in these weekly chats to talk about a topic or two. If you're not new here, then you know every week we have a new poll, and that is generally the topic of today. And today's poll is, which of these listed options are you having the most struggle with? Because we're talking about pricing today. Audiobook pricing, voiceover pricing, pricing on platforms, pricing with, direct communication, direct marketing with clients. Whatever questions you have about pricing, let's talk about them. Your choices for the poll, we've got about 13 votes so far. Audiobook pay types and rates, we can talk about both because there's 3 different ways to get paid for audiobooks. We can talk about the different pay types as well. 47% of you said audiobook pay types and rates. 33% of you said voiceover rates. None of you are concerned with commercial or broadcast rates, usage rights, right? And then 25% of you said live direction and or studio time rates, because there is on occasion, especially if you're working with clients on voiceover specific platforms or even direct clients, they want to know your studio time, what your costs are for live directed sessions, things of that nature. So what we're going to go over today is where you can find suggested voiceover rates and how you can make your own rate card, because when you are working with direct clients, or if someone reaches out to you and says, hey, do you have maybe they produce all kinds of content and they want to know what your rates are for different types of voiceovers, whether it is e-learning, commercial, right? More than one type or subtype of voiceover. They'll ask for your rate card, so that way you'll know what they're talking about, A, and B, how you can make your own really easily and simply through Canva. And that way you can send it to them as a PDF, right? Okay, so let's talk about audiobook pay types, and then I'll go in and I'll show you where you can find suggested voiceover rates and how you could create your own. And I have seen a couple of questions in the chat regarding basically if your rates can change from place to place depending on market or whomever, wherever you got the job. Your rates should stay consistent across all platforms. Which is why it's important to take a look at suggested rates from different websites to get a general idea, because some rate guides and I'll show you here in a moment, and some rate guides will actually break it down not only by subtype of voiceover, but it'll also break it down by your experience level. So it'll make it a little bit easier to figure out, if you're just getting started, where you should, like what the starting points are, right? And then once you have an idea of what you want to charge, then you can create the rate guide. And then if you have the ability to dictate your own rates, you want to keep them consistent across all platforms, because there will be times when people will find you on platform A, search for you, find your website, and then perhaps on platform A, they've already done the calculations, let's just say Fiverr, because you can easily get a quote there. And then they decide, I don't want to pay the 20% additional Fiverr fee, so I'm just going to Google them and find their website, reach out to them directly, and get a quote directly from them, so I can save a little bit of money. And then when they contact you on your website and your price point is much higher or much lower, it's much different from what they got quoted on Fiverr, you might have lost them. They might be upset about that. So it's important to keep your rates consistent everywhere. And then as you go along your journey and you get better and you improve, you increase your prices, you can increase them across all platforms. So it's important to be transparent and professional about your rates. All right. So let's talk about audiobook pay types. Now, if you're working on a place like ACX, let's just use ACX because it's very common. ACX has 3 different pay types that you could, 3 different pay types that the author can choose from, in which they can pay you for their audiobook production. Sorry, I've got several different things that I want to talk about, and I'm trying to streamline my brain. Good luck with that. So I think the most common one that we speak about a lot here on my channel is royalty share. And a royalty share is essentially producing an audiobook, and you and the author are sharing the royalties on it, but not a full 100% of the royalties, because of course the platform, in this case ACX, is going to take 60% of every book sold, and then the remaining 40%, 20% of that sale goes to you as the narrator, and 20% of that sale goes to the author. And I think it's still 7 years. For 7 years. So for every book sold, you get 20% of each sale, they get 20% of each sale. Now it shifts a little bit whether or based on if the author decides to go exclusive or non-exclusive with ACX, but that's generally what you can expect. The other pay type is referred to as either pay for production or per finished hour. It's essentially the same thing, just 2 different ways of saying it. And this is where you are paid a lump sum based on the word count of the book, or as ACX slices it down by hours. A finished hour is defined as roughly 9,300 words, so that makes it a little bit easier to figure out finished time. But that's going to vary. It doesn't need to be exactly 9,300 words. That's just a rough estimate because, that's about the normal rate of speech for a person. It could be a little bit less. It could be a little bit more. But your per finished hour rate, there's a gnat in here. Get out of here. Industry standard is $250 per finished hour. It doesn't mean you have to start there. As a brand new narrator, even myself, I didn't feel like I could. I couldn't justify charging that much for what I didn't know, right? For I wouldn't say incompetence, but what I didn't know, right? I was fresh. I didn't have my skills down yet. So in the beginning, I charged $50 per finished hour, and then sort of took that as a paid internship, right? I was learning as I was growing, and then as I got a couple books under my belt, then I would increase my prices. But industry standard is $250 per finished hour, and that's ultimately where you want to get or above, right? Okay. And then there's a hybrid of those 2 different pay types, and that's called royalty share plus. Now, this is where you share royalties with the author, the same 20% split. And you also get typically a smaller per finished hour rate on top of that. So for example, let's just say your per finished hour rate is $200 per finished hour. And the author comes to you and says, hey, I'd really like for you to produce my audiobook, but I can't quite afford your per finished hour rate, and I'm really looking to go into royalty share. I think that might make us more money. So what they would offer you is perhaps $100 per finished hour plus the royalties, or $150 per finished hour plus the royalties. It's usually a smaller per finished hour rate. And just a side note, if you are working with the per finished hour rate pay type, I recommend that you let the author know up front that you collect 50% of that per finished hour, the finished project amount, 50% of that up front. There's two reasons for that. One is if the author decides to change their mind, something comes up, maybe, I don't know, for whatever reason they want to not do this anymore. You are still covered for your time with that 50% down. You are still covered because maybe at that point you had taken the time to prep the manuscript, you read through it, you started to make some notes. That covers your time. The second reason for doing that is that it dissuades scammers, because scammers don't want to pay anything. They want to take their files and run and not pay you at all. So if you're collecting a down payment, so to speak, they're not going to want to work with you, and you just outed a scammer. And it doesn't have to be 50%. It could be 30%, 35%, 20%, whatever you're comfortable with working with. But I usually do 50% because that just makes it two even numbers, right? 50% now, 50% later. So those are the pay types. We touched a little bit on rates, but we can get into that when I show you where to go for rate guide assistance. So the first place that you could go to, and this is really the benchmark for rates, that is GVAA or globalvoiceacademy.com. This is the benchmark for rates. And this new iteration of the rate guide is really, really easy to read. It's really easy to find anything. Once you pull up globalvoiceacademy.com, you can go right to the rate guide. This is the page that I'm on now. But once you're here, you have all these different categories, so you can easily jump to what you're looking for. So let's just go to audiobooks and see what they say. Now, GVAA is great because they break it down by union and non-union, the hybrid, any kind of add-ons, things like that. Almost anything that you would have a question about. This is where your questions would be answered in terms of rates. So, and they even break it down here for, I could still see this gnat in my periphery. It's really, really distracting me, so I apologize. So they're saying that the union is only $150 to $225 for finished hour. That's interesting. So non-union is up to $500 per finished hour. I haven't seen this new iteration. That's interesting. There will be times where you'll have clients that perhaps to save a couple of bucks, maybe they have an in-house editor, maybe it's a small, indie publisher and they do have some staff and they want those files raw, which is nice for you because it saves you time. All you need to do is just record the files and send them, and then they do the rest. This is where you can find that information, $225 per hour, right? Or whatever you decide. Ultimately, these are just guides to tell you what is typical. And this is not the only guide, too. I'm going to show you a couple of others. So I want you to know where these are and what these are so that you can make your own determination on what your rates should be. But there are great little tidbits of information on all of these rate guides that perhaps something you didn't think of before, like production add-ons, right? And that includes music, too. Okay, so this is GVAA. Another rate guide that I recommend that you look at is aviosjourney.com, and then you could go right to the rate guide. If I go back a page, just took it completely off. Oh, geez. Let's go back. So aviosjourney.com, and then it's right here, rate guide. Now, this is also the academy that I coach for. So if you're interested in coaching classes, audiobook, commercial, e-learning, character, there's a link in the description of this video where you can come and learn with us. But this is the rate guide on our page. Now, this one is actually broken down by beginner rates, intermediate rates, and seasoned rates for all different categories. And he's also included a word count calculator. So much like Fiverr, where you can sort of go in and add all of your add-ons on and get a quote that way, this is the same thing. So we've got non-broadcast and recording fees for freelance and pay-to-play websites, broadcast license, audiobook, IVR, phone greetings, e-learning. I wanted to get down to the bottom to show you something specific. Video game apps, ADR and dubbing, meditation, affirmation. He's also got a section for Fiverr and Upwork down below here. But just to give you an idea of what rates, if you're just like, I have no idea what to do, you could take my advice from any of my videos here on my channel. You can take the advice here from this rate guide on what to charge and come up with something of your own, or just use the rates that are here just to make it easy. Right? He's got it broken down by beginner, intermediate, and top rated, pro, any kind of add-ons, your revisions, your revision policy, and some of the different add-ons that are found on Fiverr, like audio sync, split files, things that we talk about all the time. And then, of course, Upwork prices, proposals, beginner rates, intermediate. It's all there. Another place you could go to get information on rates is voices.com. They have oh, here they are. Okay, so we've got broadcast and non-broadcast. Excuse me. I thought they had a whole rate guide on here. They used to. Am I just missing it? Let's just skip over that one. Voice Acting 101. I found this one just by doing a Google search. Let's see what they've got. So Audiobook, they're recommending $300 per finished hour. I like it. So they're saying non-union, $150 to $350 per finished hour. I like that. And they even give you an example on how to break that down. Okay, e-learning, 25 cents a word. That's pretty typical. Explainer, $300 per 90-minute video. Okay. So you can start to see that some of these are pretty consistent in terms of pricing, but I think where I would start is the one on aviosjourney.com, because there's so many different variables when it comes to voiceover and audiobooks. And then you factor in with that experience levels and, you know, Fiverr and Upwork. This is the only rate guide that includes all of that. If you're just getting started and you're looking to have rates on these sites. But as I've said before, make sure that whatever, you guys see that, Nat? Whatever rates that you choose, make sure that they are consistent across all platforms. And as you increase your prices, you increase them on all the platforms. So how do we do that? Well, once you decide on what kind of rate that you're going to charge, you're going to come to Canva, you're going to go to templates, and you're going to type in menu. Because this is the easiest template to just change and use for a rate guide. So choose one that looks good to you, that's got perhaps a section for like an explanation and then a price. So which one is pretty clean? This one is pretty clean. Now this one is a pro, so I don't want to use that one. Let's go for one that's free. Here's a good one. So this one is free. Let's customize this template. See, it's pretty basic, and any of these sections can be moved, changed. You can change the font, you can change the size, but ultimately what you want to do is just change the text to rate guide, right? And then perhaps we can change this to your website address. You can change this one to, let's double click it here. Let's change it to audiobooks. And then you can change this one to e-learning, perhaps. You can change this one to so on and so forth. And then you can break down your rates. So this one would be, let's just say, per finished hour. Right? And that doesn't quite fit there, but we can extend this so it does. And then you can just change this to 250. And then if this doesn't serve you any, the text there, you can just delete it. And then you can perhaps change these to production add-ons. Like if someone just wanted to hire you for just editing and mastering, you could add that on as a production add-on. And then perhaps this one down here could be, raw files, right? What your per finished hour rate for just raw files. And then just go through and change each one of these, for just the voiceover per 100 words, it's this much. And then to add on, sort of like a la carte, right? So they can see what the base price would be and then plus what your pricing is for any of the add-ons. So for this one, you could do e-learning per 100 words is X amount. And then this add-on could be adding music. And then this one could be video sync, right? And then just change the prices accordingly. And again, you can change this up however you want to. You can get rid of that little thing and add something else in if you want to. Add a little microphone icon in there if you wanted to. Canva's really super easy to use. And then once you have this all configured the way that you want it to be for your rate guide, you want to go to Share. And then you want to download it and change this from a PNG to a PDF. And then download it as a PDF. And that way you can send a PDF to your clients as your rate guide. Make sense? All right. I know we got a lot of comments, so let's go over to the comments. Could probably have taken this banner off the screen. All right, ask me your questions. What you got? Let's see who was in first. Abe was here before I was even down here. Well, that's not true. I was down here. I just wasn't logged on yet. Abe says, good morning all from a dreary Nashville. May your voice be sonorous, your PFH be high, and your pickups be few. I like it. And then Jules said, wow, my keyboard is trying to depart with the rapture. But I just plugged it in. I hope everyone is having an absolutely fantastic day today. Yeah, it's all over social media, right? Today and tomorrow. Jules says, at this point, when I get spam, people trying to talk to me into business, I quote their price back at them. Currently, I'm at 100 or 300 per finished hour. Yeah, I'm at the point where I kind of just have fun with people trying me on for scams. I got another one of those the other day. What is today? Tuesday? So it was Sunday, perhaps, where someone on Fiverr tried to tell me that to place an order that they needed my email address. I don't know why they would try, I'm a top-rated seller on Fiverr. I don't know why they would think that I haven't had the experience to know that you don't need an email address to place an order. So I said, that's not an actual field on, on this page. Sorry, try again. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, do what you're going to do with the scammers, but, ultimately report and block so they don't, if you have the ability to report them so they don't, try on someone else and they fall for it. Try to save someone else. Pay that forward. Abe says, Jules, let me guess, Penwise Publishing? That's the current ACX scam I've seen. I've seen a lot throughout the years, but usually if it's too good to be true, if they're asking you for personal information, they're asking you to go off-site and sign up somewhere else to do something else and put in a bunch. No. How about no? Pamela says, good morning. My husband has business errands out on the San Juan Islands. What wife and dog wouldn't go for a ride this beautiful fall day? Good meeting all. See you on Thursday. Enjoy your ride, Pamela. It sounds fun. Kat says, good morning from Washington. I picked the closest to my real question. How do you decide how much per VO when you collaborate with a VO who has more experience than you? Okay. So what immediately comes to mind with this question is, let's just say you're doing a dual or a duet narration with another audiobook narrator and their per finished rate is higher than yours. There's typically one of you who is working with the author. So the conversation that I would have with the other VO artist is to just decide on one price point. That way it's you're not having to pay this narrator this much and this narrator this much. Just make it one per finished hour rate. So I would say just suggest the VO artist's rate that has more experience, because their rate's going to be higher, right? Because you don't want to short them. The inexperienced one is really just going to be the one that benefits from this most often, right? So if the more experienced narrator's per finished hour rate is $250, that's what it is. And then you two can just split the fee by word count. So if your word count, your part is 30,000 words and the other narrator is 40,000 words, you just take that, finished project fee and then divide it by the word count. And then that person gets this much and this person gets this much. That's what I would do. Just make it easy. I mean, don't make it difficult if you don't have to. Just make it one rate and then you share it. Penwise Publishing. Chuck says, hey, everybody. Is there a handy guide to pricing an audiobook across the different platforms, or is it just a general consensus of the group or whatever the market will bear? I think this is the comment that caught my eye when I was explaining about keeping your pricing consistent across platforms. Now, there could be a little bit of variance, because let's just say that your per finished hour rate is $100. And you can't quite get it exactly $100 with the mathing on Fiverr, with the mathing of the gigs, as we talked about before, and it comes out to be $105. That's fine. There's going to be a little bit of variance just due to, the different platforms' restrictions of things. But there's a difference between $100 per finished hour and $105 per finished hour versus $100 per finished hour and $200 per finished hour. That's quite the difference, right? So you don't want to inadvertently put off a client if they're price checking you on different places to have your price point be super different from place to place. That usually turns people off. And you won't know they're doing it, and they might not tell you they're doing it. So be transparent, be professional, and keep your pricing across the board consistent. Now, there are going to be some exceptions, because there are some voiceover platforms like, I think, Voice Planet, Voice Jungle, Voice Planet, I think, has their own set rates that you can't change. So obviously your hands are tied there. You can't do much about it. It's just a flat rate. Depending on the word count and the type of voiceover it is, you don't have any input. That's understandable. But if you can create your own price point, then keep them consistent across the platforms. Does that make sense? Also, how's my volume today? I changed some settings in Google. Is my volume better? Am I louder? Am I quieter? Did it change at all? I'm hearing a lot of people say I'm quiet. Gia says, good morning, all from Georgia. Funny, just got an email from Penwise Publishing this morning. Definitely a scam. I'm going to have to go into ACX and see if I got one too. I'm sure I have. Rustic Hillbilly says, good morning, everyone. Good morning to you. Jules says, don't forget to smoosh all the YouTube buttons. Yes, please. Definitely do that. It helps my algorithm. It feeds the algorithm gods. Thank you. Masonry Construction says, these days, ACX, I'm avoiding royalty share deals over 2 hours and avoiding authors who have no marketing plan for their book once it's published. For royalty share, yes. You definitely want to make sure that for royalty share books, you're working with an author who has some sort of an idea of how they want to market the book, but keep in mind that the author is also anticipating or expecting you, as the other person sharing in the royalties, that you're also going to be doing marketing on your point or on your part. And I'm not talking specifically to you, Masonry Construction, just generally speaking, but you do want to see and even ask if the author has a social media platform. Sometimes they'll tell you up front what their plans are, but sometimes they won't. But obviously you want to see if there's some sort of marketing plan to promote this book. And then on the same point, you as the narrator, the other person sharing the royalties, you could go into Canva, take the audiobook cover, the image of the cover, and, add the retail sample that you created, as the audio and then promote that on social media. Just make that into a reel or, a TikTok video or something and then promote it that way. Easy peasy, right? What was the other thing I was going to say? Oh, that's what it was. Royalty share. Yes, same thing for me. I won't do royalty share books over 3 hours. Because unless it's like mind-blowing topic and I think it's going to be evergreen, and I think if it's trending or if it's something that I think is going to sell well over the course of that 7-year contract. But either way you look at it, you're taking a chance to get some kind of return on your investment of time in producing that audiobook. So hence why you want to make sure that that author has some sort of a marketing plan for it. And then you yourself should also have a marketing plan for it. Paul says, good afternoon, Angela et al. From Dunmow, UK. Interested to see what the difference is between USA and UK pricing. Audiobooks over here seem to be priced significantly lower than the USA. That's interesting. That is interesting. Because I didn't see on any of these rate guides a differentiation between where you're using this. That's interesting. So what is industry standard then for UK? I'm curious. Inquiring minds want to know. Paul says, good morning, Miss Angela. Good morning to you, Paul. How you doing? Jules says, I'm just saying, but I wish I could listen and record at the same time. There should be an app for that. That would be cool, though. Well, yeah, I'm a little distracting. I don't. It's like patting your head and rubbing your stomach at the same time. I don't know if you could do both. Abe says, I've given rate guides and then gotten work by word of mouth after I raised my rates. Rights holder was a little put out at first until I explained my equipment was upgraded and I'm scheduling more in demand. You brought up a great point, Abe. There will come times where let's just say that you're a newer seller and your rates were pretty affordable for a lot of people as a beginner. And you've got some repeat business, you've got some clients, and then you come to a point where you're just swamped. You can't handle any more business. So naturally, you decide that you're going to raise your rates, which you should at that point. That's a good indicator that you should be raising your rates. So what do you do with the clients that you already have? Well, you can politely tell them that you are increasing your prices due to demand or whatever your reasoning is. And I have found that a lot of clients understand that. But if they have become accustomed or maybe now their budget is dependent on the rates that they've been getting from you forever, maybe you can come to a special pro rate for them, a special discounted rate for them. And then maybe with the potential to increase it in X amount of months or, it's up to you. Again, the beauty of all of this is that you are the business owner. You are the person who wears all those hats. You can decide what rates you want. And you can decide when to increase them and who gets what rate, right? If you have a client that you've been working with for a long time and they're, maybe their budget's pretty tight, you can have a special rate for them. I mean, don't share that with everybody, but you could, right? Gregory says, good morning, Angela's Vixens and Villains. I like that. From far north Dallas, I am recovering from the flu and lost my quiet storm bass voice. Opportunity missed. Is that why your last few TikToks have just been music and not voice? Hope you're feeling better, Gregory. Masonry Construction says ACX fourth pay type, unspecified per finished hour. For those of you watching, that it really isn't. He's just saying there's probably a lot of people with that selected on their book. Soliciting auditions as an unspecified perfect. That's a good thing if it's unspecified because they're waiting for you to tell them what you charge and they're going to get an idea of, You know, this person's experience level equals this amount of per finished hour rate, and this person, you know what I mean? So they're trying to get an idea of what is typical, usual, right? So that's good. That means they're open. They're open to possibilities instead of being stuck on one particular rate. It's easier to negotiate with someone if they have an open mind. And unspecified is fantastic. Gia says to Masonry, I'm finding that I'm being very selective with that as well on ACX with the royalty share. And if you find a book that you really, really, really want to produce, and maybe that author doesn't have a marketing plan posted, you can still audition and ask them if they have considered a marketing plan. Maybe this is their first time doing this ever and haven't thought about that aspect of it yet. Right? And you asking them, they go, oh, well, shoot, I haven't even thought of that. What would you suggest? And that's when you as the professional jump in there and educate them on ways that they can promote their book. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. They might just not know what they're doing yet. So it's a good way to foster a new relationship. Gregory says, I might have lost my voice, but I haven't lost my clicking on the thumbs up button to feed the algo. Join me, citizens of Angela. You're the best, Greg. I appreciate you. Joy is here. Hey, Joy. Good afternoon, everyone from Southfield, Michigan. I'm still struggling with understanding audiobook per finished hour rates and how to set them in Fiverr gigs. Not last week, but the week before, we went through how to set those. So if you go to my playlist and you go back 2 weeks, I think it's just audiobook Fiverr gig, something like that in the title. We went through exactly this. Masonry Construction says, my preferred payment type is royalty share plus, with a fixed fee of $100 to $200 per finished hour, plus royalty share. The royalty share is important if you want to be involved in the success of the book through marketing, which is critical. Yeah, I mean, it's just like anything. Anything out there for sale, whether it's your services or this product or whatever it is, nobody's going to know it's there unless you tell them. And you tell them through marketing. So again, it could be just as simple as you asking the rights holder for the cover art and you taking that and you making a video out of it on Canva, really super easy to do. And then just take the retail sample. You know, the 5-minute retail sample that you created for the book on ACX, just take that or a piece of it and insert that as the audio, and then, you know, include on the video coming soon to Audible or available now on Audible. And then you can include a link directly to it to Audible so people can go there and click it and buy it, right? It really is just that easy. Alicia's here. Hey, everyone. Hey, Alicia. How you doing? I wanted to ask you guys, what do you guys think? I'm at a point, I went to jiu-jitsu last night, and I like it. I like it, but I have so much to do during the course of my week. Usually at night, I go to the gym, I kickbox, and I have like classes and things that I teach for Avio's Journey Academy, and I have a lot to do usually in the night. I really like jiu-jitsu. I'm like in a trial period right now. My boyfriend brought me to his academy. But I can't make it fit in with everything else that I do. Should I stick with kickboxing, or should I leave kickboxing and do jiu-jitsu instead? What do you guys think? What do you guys think? Kickboxing or jiu-jitsu? I can only fit in one. Just wanted to see what you guys had to say. Jules says, how are they only 3 thumbs up but 35 people watching? Hit the thumbs up and feed the algo gods, please. Yes, please. Please do that. I appreciate you. Anne says, happy Tuesday, all. Masonry Construction says, as Angela said in the beginning, it is important to be a little humble. Do 2 or 3 books very cheaply or even royalty share, even if they won't sell, but you can then point to audiobooks you have on Audible. I think you should remain somewhat humble throughout the course of your business. Because having a big head doesn't really serve much, right? It makes you forget the struggles. It makes you forget where you've been and be grateful. I mean, you tend to not be as grateful if you're becoming arrogant, right? You should always be grateful for where you are and what you have, right? Gratitude will take you a long way. But as I mentioned, and as Masonry Construction says, I considered those lower priced projects in the beginning as a paid internship. I wasn't doing it for free, but I wasn't at, the rate that I should have been at. But in the very beginning, when you don't know what you're doing, a little bit of something for your time and then learning so much more, which is so much more valuable than the dollars that you made, right? If you look at it that way, and then once you get past that point, the first few books, then you have work that you can, like he said, point to when people ask you what you've done. You've got actual titles to post in your bios when you're asked about what titles you've done or work that you've done previous. It's all a good thing. And you made a little bit of money doing it. It might not have been what other people are making, but I can guarantee you that those people that you're comparing yourself to or that you're looking to or following, they started exactly where you are at some point, right? You have to remind yourself of that those people that you're following, listening to, want to be like, they started in the exact same place that you did. And maybe even made a whole lot less than you are, right? It's a journey. It's a progress. I don't want to go off on that tangent. Kristen says, good morning, everyone. Wishing you all a great week of voiceover. Janelle is here. Hey, Janelle. Hi, Angela. Hi, everyone. Thanks for talking about this. I always get a little nervous talking about rates, but feeling more confident now. Hope you get that gnat. I know. I don't know if you guys can see it. It keeps buzzing around. It's irritating me. It's a gnat. Same. I think talking about money is uncomfortable for everyone, for the most part. For most everyone. I won't say everyone, but most everyone. Discussions about money is usually uncomfortable, but you will get more confident if, let's just say for me, once I had my rate guide, once I went through all of the rate guides that I just showed you, and I decided on what my entry-level rates were going to be, and went through the process of creating my rate guide on Canva, every question is addressed on that rate guide, right? There's no, like, there was no gray areas, right? I could intelligently answer questions any question that my clients threw at me. Could I do this? Yes, I can. Here it is on my rate guide, right? It kind of got rid of any kind of doubt or anything for me, right? I don't know if you guys see it the way that I do, but that really, really helped to build my confidence in talking about rates and negotiating rates and talking about money in general. And then also understanding my worth in the place, appropriate to my experience level, right? Being humble enough to know that I'm not charging industry standard rates yet because I'm still learning. I'm still learning and growing, but don't stay in that stage forever, because as you go, you invest in more equipment, you invest in training. You yourself have spent tons of time with practicing and going through auditions and learning so much as you go. You just naturally and inherently get better the more that you do it. The more that you're learning and growing as you go, you should be increasing your rates, increasing your rates. I think I need more coffee. Anne says, I agree, Masonry Construction. That's been my mode of operation. I started in September 2023. I booked a few royalty share, then a few lower per finished hour titles, and I'm starting to quote higher rates as I go on Audiobook 10. Good for you. Good for you. So what's your rate now for per finished hour, if you don't mind me asking, Anne? Tanya's here. Hey, Tanya. The golden goddess voice herself. Evening all. Got here late, so I brought Black Forest cherry chocolate donuts. Oh my God. That sounds amazing. Sorry, I didn't mean to punch the mic. Life Unleashed says, I almost had my first order and it said it needed my email for first order. You mean somebody reached out to you on Fiverr and said that they needed your email for their order? That's a scam, if that's what you mean. I would highly recommend that if you're on Fiverr, you yourself should go and purchase something just to go through the entire process and see how it goes. So just go buy something for $5. It doesn't matter what it is, right? Just so you can go through the process. That way you can clearly spot scams when they come across your page. You go, that's not a thing. And then also you can help your clients place an order with you if they're brand new to Fiverr. You can tell them what to expect and where to go and what's going to happen, right? You've been through it yourself and you know how it works. Gia says, second that on being humble. After a week of auditions, I accepted my first 2 book offers for royalty share under 3 hours. Glad to be able to go through this process and continue learning. Absolutely. Masonry Construction says, just a guess on my part, but if you are collaborating with an experienced author, likely the experienced one is also doing the editing and mastering, typically. So you can easily work less expensively. Now, that's also going to depend on if the author is experienced, they may have their own editor that maybe they've used in the past, right? So then you're sending raw files for both people to the client. There could be a lot of variables in there, and I'm thinking like a dual or duet narration, right? But to his point, yes, most often if you're working with someone that's a little bit more experienced than you and you're doing like a dual or a duet narration, most often that more experienced audiobook narrator is also going to be mixing the 2 files together, doing the editing, the mastering, the post-production part. So they may also get a little bit extra on top of their word count to pay for that time as well. So, but long story short, if you just stick with the experienced narrator's per finished hour rate, or whatever they decide, especially if they're doing the production part of it, it might even be more than industry standard. It could be, $300 per finished hour to cover all of their time. But then you get your portion of it, right? Just to make things easy. Joel is here. Hey, Joel. Good to see you, buddy. Hey there. Just got here. Here's some donuts. Good. Everybody's saying the volume is fine. Okay. I'm hoping it is. Made some adjustments. Hi, Stacy. Love the content. Well, thank you. Abe says, I did a dual narration and took $35 less per finished hour as the other narrator did all the editing and mastering. I was raw audio only. It's awesome. I like those. Although I have to say, when I do raw recordings, at the very least, I take out the retakes and then I'll send the files over. Or like if I coughed or sneezed or, I take that stuff out because I don't want to have the other narrator listening through all of my retakes or listening through if I, coughed or something. I take all that stuff out and then I send them over. But technically you don't have to if someone else is being paid to do it. Chuck says, slightly off topic, but still in the ballpark. As a beginning voice artist, is it a must that I have a website? Yes. Since I'm starting on Fiverr and other platforms that handle the money exchange, yes. Yes, for many reasons. You want to have a website, even if it's like a free template version. You want to have a digital home base. Period. Because even if you're just on Fiverr, you're just on some platforms kind of, dipping your toes in, the probability is high that, as I mentioned before, that someone doesn't want to pay Fiverr's 20% fees or Upwork's 10, 15, 20% fees that they tack on to the order. They search your username and they find your website and they work with you directly. Or if you start talking about and promoting yourself on social media, which we stress a lot here on my channel, is getting onto social media and making it known that you are a voice artist or an audiobook narrator, you want somewhere for those people to go. You want them to go to your website to find out more information, to hire you directly. That is how you get some of your direct hire clients, is they will find you. So you want somewhere for them to find you, and that is your website. So yes, I don't care what stage you are in this business. If you've decided on your rates because you want to have your rate guide ready, if someone reaches out to you on your website to either A, ask you for your rate guide, or B, ask you for a quote on a project, and you have your rate guide to reference for that, right? I don't care what stage you're in. Have a website, even if it's a free one, and then upgrade it later. But yes, I would have a website. Chuck says, I would build a basic website. It gives a little more credibility. That's the other reason. Because if someone were to search you, what you want them to see is all of your profiles, your website, some social media handles that match, right? They want to see that you are established, you're a professional, that you're not a scammer, right? All of those things add to your credibility. So you definitely want to have a website for that reason too. Abe says, you never know if somebody will want to use you outside of Fiverr. Exactly. Any suggestions? Wix. Wix has a free version. I think a lot of the website hosts do. So you could start just go to Google and type in website hosts, right? And see what comes up. But I chose Wix. It's really easy to use, and they did have a free template version. The only thing that you have to contend with on the free version is that it's going to be, voiceoverangela.com/Wix, right? So it's not going to be like a direct address. It's going to have a little bit of that host's branding, probably even on the website page. But who cares? A lot of people don't care. It's just a way for someone to find you. And then at some point you can upgrade it to remove the branding, right? Jules says, I can't believe there's still only 3 thumbs up. Maybe people started watching and got raptured before they could hit the thumbs up. Oh my gosh. Masonry Construction says, every audition on ACX, I always send a note. You could certainly include a throwaway line like, and I like to get really involved in the marketing. I would highly recommend, not to you directly, but to anybody watching, if you do an audition on ACX, you should have a personal note. It should be telling the author how you relate to this book, or why you were connected, or why you were drawn to audition for this book, right? You want to give them a little bit of insight that you're not just shotgunning auditions. Those personal touches mean a lot, right? Because we ourselves, if someone reaches out to us on Fiverr and just says, hey, give me this quote, you're kind of like put off by that. You're like, oh, okay. Or maybe they address you with someone else's name. You're like, okay, they're just shotgunning, looking for quotes. It's the same way around when you're approaching clients. Put something personal in there. Those little touches do go a long way. So you should have a note in there anyway. But if it is a royalty share, to his point, you should have some sort of an idea of what to say about how you are going to market the book. That will be appealing to the rights holder as well. Because in the same vein, if you're looking to see how they want to market it, they want to know how you plan to market it as well. Tanya says, UK standard per finished hour isn't that far below the US. The gravy for the brain rate card only includes recording and editing between 65 and 105. I double that to find the full amount and charge 198. Interesting. I'm going to have to go look. Jody said, good morning, Jody. They both sound amazing. The new podcast, Voiceover Angela Kickdown. Are we talking about jiu-jitsu or kickboxing? Yeah. Kickdown. Chuck says, are you doing these martial arts as only combat sports, entertainment, exercise, or self-defense? All of them. All of them. It's a good workout. I want to learn self-defense, and I want to be strong. I want to be strong and handle myself, without the ching ching pow. Right, if you know it, the martial arts of ching ching pow is, ching ching pow. I want to be able to defend myself. Abe says, jiu-jitsu. You can always swap back if it's a flash in the pan. Good point. Jiu-jitsu sounds pretty badass. Okay. Alicia says, hang on to the jiu-jitsu for now and see how you feel for a period of time. If it's worth keeping, consider letting go of one of your other activities, or at least temporarily. Okay. I'm at the end of my 10-day trial. I've had 2 classes because I can only do it on Monday night. And I mean, it's nice that my boyfriend is my partner rolling around, but I've only got 2 days left on my trial. So I'm at the point where it's do I join or do I not? So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick with kickboxing because I forgot to mention the kickboxing is with my son. So that is one thing that we do together on Tuesday nights, so tonight. So I think what I'm going to do is just stick with kickboxing for now because that's month to month. I have to figure out if the jiu-jitsu is a yearly contract or if that's also month to month. If it is, I think I might finish out the year with kickboxing and then maybe start jiu-jitsu at the beginning of the year. I think that's what I may do. I don't know. Rochelle says, hello, Angela and all. Excellent topic and great info. Thank you. Oh, and just completed my first audiobook. Trial by Fire is right. Congratulations. I know that's your first book. Is so frustrating and so intimidating and so terrifying, but you learn so much completing that first book, going through the process from A to Z. You learn so much. The lessons and the knowledge that you gain is priceless in that first book. For sure. And the confidence that you feel after that first book is everything. Gia says jiu-jitsu. Janelle says, maybe do kickboxing for half the year and then jiu-jitsu for the other half. You'll know which one feels right by then. I did taekwondo for a few years, and I remember you said that. You told me you got up to a purple, right? You got up to a purple belt? My son just got promoted to red. So he's pretty close. Next up is conditional and then black belt. Conditional black and then black belt. He's getting pretty close. But he does kickboxing with me. So that's fun. Masonry Construction says, I have a couple of royalty shares on ACX with absolute 0 sales after several months, but they made me a published narrator on Audible, and I learned how to do the production process, internship. Exactly. So all this to say that we don't want you to look down on royalty share books, because even if you just focused on royalty share books, smaller royalty share books, then those add up too, right? I mean, even if this one only makes 5 cents and this one maybe does a lot better and makes you, a couple of bucks, I mean, all of that will add up over time. If you're knocking out, 5 of these a month, don't look down on royalty share. Joy says, couldn't you do jiu-jitsu on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and kickboxing Saturday, and rest those muscles Sunday? There is no rest. No rest, Joy. There's no rest. Anne says, I just booked for 100 per finished hour on audiobooks 9 and 10. Good for you. I would say after number 10, raise your rates. I think with 9 and 10, you should be closer to 150, if not 200 at this point. So after number 10 is done, Anne, if you want to do it in smaller increments, go up to 150. But I think at this point, you should be closer to 200 after 10. Dylan says, making my rate cards made me realize that Fiverr is not the place for me. I was undercharging and still not getting work. I'm thinking about ditching the platform so there isn't a price difference. Keep in mind also, we've talked about the Fiverr algorithm and little things that you can do to appease the algorithm gods on Fiverr. Another thing that the Fiverr algorithm likes is bigger prices. If you increase your prices on Fiverr, you may see an influx in impressions and clicks and potentially orders if you increase your prices. This is why I say when you're thinking about how to structure your pricing on Fiverr is to go and look at what other people are charging and to get some ideas or some insight on how to structure yours. Not necessarily starting out at $5 per 100 words. You could do 20, You could be more than the people in your level. So if you're a new seller, you're looking at other new sellers and what they're charging. Most of them are probably going to start at the 5 or 10. You could do 15 or 20. But Fiverr likes to make the money too. So I tend to find that if your prices are a little bit higher, you get seen more often. So play around with different price points and see which ones get you more impressions. Jody said, I started with a basic website, but it has a custom domain. I'm now realizing they don't have all the options I want. If I upgrade my website later, is there a way to transfer the domain elsewhere? I think it's going to depend on where your website currently is and where you want to take it. So I would do some Google research or research on those websites in terms of how to make that switch and if it's even possible. It may be that you have to pay for them to maybe release or to buy that custom website domain. But if you search those sites, I bet you they'll tell you how it's done. Masonry Construction says, if two voices are perceived as equal, then having a plus, like marketing, might just help close the sale. Exactly. Joy says, Angela, how do I let it be known that I'm interested in doing dual narrations with ACX Fiverr, where I just record raw recordings? First, you have to be on those sites, and then you could probably put it in your profile or your bio, saying that you are open to that. Another way to do that is to make sure if you're in, you are in our Platinum Discord. If you have the dual or duet, badge on your profile that tells the other people in the group that you are open to it. And then having demos available for that, I suppose. But I would say put it in your bio. Alicia says, in that case, keep kickboxing. Jiu-jitsu isn't going anywhere, and you can always join it another time. Things in your life may change later, giving more time for anything, jiu-jitsu, that you want to do. That's a great point. That's a great point, because my son's getting older, and at some point he's going to want to go do the college thing, and, he might, once he is a black belt, then he might not, or maybe even at any point between here and there, he's not going to want to kickbox anymore. So I think I'm going to stay there and spend that time with him as long as he'll tolerate me and then go to jiu-jitsu. Yeah. Thanks, Alicia. Johnny says, hi, Angela. Totally random question, but what's the pop filter you're using? I dig the look. I chose this one because it wasn't like a big, because if I'm doing videos, I don't want a big pop filter in my face. So this one, I wish Caesar would hear because he knows it off the top of his head. I want to say, I used to have it as recommended gear on my website, but then they stopped selling it. I want to say oh God, Caesar knows exactly what it is. Shoot. Octo something. I think your best bet at this point, because I can't remember the name of it, but if you went to bnh.com and searched for shotgun microphone pop filters, I bet you this one, because that's where I got it from. I got it from B&H, but I can't remember the name of it. You'll see it. Ken says, better late than never. Donuts on order and very grateful for recorded videos. Don't forget to do the algorithm things. Yes. Do all the YouTube-y things. I appreciate you. Masonry Construction says, Ann Fritz, congrats on 9 and 10. Strongly suggest you push for a royalty share in addition to per finished hour. You'll be more involved in the book and you'll get more promo codes to give away. PFH only, no codes. All great points. Okay. That seems to be it for questions, so I'm going to leave it there. Thanks, everybody, for joining today, and thank you for asking your questions and participating. I always appreciate it, and you never know when your question is going to be someone else's question. They just may be too shy to ask. So bring them on. As we always say, there's no such thing as a dumb question. Otherwise, how do we find out stuff, you know? So ask the questions. I will be back next Tuesday. Same bat time, same bat channel. If, oh, hang on. I just saw it. Dylan. There we go. Thank you, Dylan. It's the Hook Studios Octo 842S. Thank you for that, Dylan. That's what this pop filter is. You rock, Dylan. So I will be back next Tuesday, same bat time, same bat channel. If there's something that you want to talk about, put it in the comments. If you're watching this in Team Replay, let me know what you guys want to talk about. This is why I do this. I do this for you. So if you have something that you want to know more about, or if there's something, you know, something you want me to dive into, technical, tutorial, whatever it is, just let me know and we'll do it. But until then, I will see you guys next week. Take care. Bye.